There has been this twist in the savage murder of Pamela Vitale, the wife of well-known TV commentator Daniel Horowitz. Here's what we know. On Thursday, the same day her son Scott was being arraigned for bludgeoning and stabbing Pamela Vitale to death, Scott's mother, Esther Fielding, was also arrested on suspicion of being an accessory to that murder. A devoted mom, Fielding had reportedly been in shock and seclusion since her son's arrest for the brutal murder of the wife of the prominent attorney and television commentator Daniel Horowitz. According to a police affidavit, on the night of the Vitale murder, the then 16-year-old called his mother from the home of his girlfriend. She advised her son to stay put because neighborhood roads were blocked by police activity at and around the scene of the homicide. When cops executed a search warrant on the property where the mother and son lived, they discovered a duffel bag in a van registered to Esther Fielding. In it, the police allegedly found traces of blood. On Friday, just minutes before she was to be formally charged with helping her son cover up the crime that has shaken this corner of Northern California, Esther Fielding again stunned the courtroom, agreeing to testify against her own teenager, the 16-year-old whose life had recently spiraled downward into a dark and dangerous abyss, and who now faces the prospect of hearing his own mother testify against him in his trial for murder.
It's about as remote as you can get. Look at all the places where somebody could actually watch you.
Former homicide detective and best-selling author Mark Furman made an unannounced visit to the scene of the crime to give us his impression of the tiny suspect and the possible motive for this monstrous crime.
We came up this road that you could walk up right up through the valley where we came up and nobody would ever even see you. And then you look at the house, look at the entryway, look at the door. You could simply kick in the door. I just can't imagine somebody answering the door in panties and a t-shirt. There's no eye hole. There's a window not too far away. They could see who's there. I'm just not sure why somebody would answer the door.
According to witnesses and police documents, Scott Daleski's alleged motive to murder was to cover up an elaborate scheme in which he used stolen credit cards to fund a marijuana growing operation. This is Daleski's home.
This is less than 1 mile right up the road here to 1901 Hunsaker Canyon Road, where the victim, Pamela Vitale, was killed. Now, when you look at this, this is also on a hill, and there is supposedly a trail that leads from this location all the way up to the Vitale Horowitz house. Now, would this be easy to conceal yourself? Yes, but the question is if he went up there for packages of hydroponic equipment to grow marijuana, is a little odd that, was he going to carry them back along this trail?
One of the neighbors told Mark about a conversation he'd had with the husband of the victim, Daniel Horowitz.
When I talked to Dan, he kind of solemnly said, "Be careful." And I didn't know what he meant by it at that time. But when I found out that this was Scott, I figured there had to have been a connection between the two.
Dan Jagers is president of Wildwood Acres, a catering hall located across the street from the murder suspect's home. Like many, Dan wonders whether this crime isn't bigger and badder than we have been led to believe.
My greatest fear right now is pretty much that there's more to the murder and drug thing going on here. I think the murder was secondary to a bigger thing, and that might be moving into this area.
All right, I want to bring in Michael Cardoza now, our friend, the former prosecutor, current defense attorney. Michael, welcome. Since Furman filed that report, a woman named Kim Coriel, who actually lived with the accused 17-year-old Scott Daleski and the mother, Esther Fielding, has also shed doubt on the story. What's going on? Is this about Satanism? Is there more to this than a kid protecting his marijuana growing operation?
You know, I got to tell you, I agree with Mark. My extra sense tells me there's something a whole lot more going on here. You were talking about Curiel. She's talking about Jazz the dog. That was Daleski's dog being hit by a neighbor. The dog dies a couple days later. They euthanize the dog. Maybe that's the reason he went up there. We can all speculate as to what's going on, but there is more to this story, I'm telling you.
So when you say that, though, do you in any way think that Daniel Horowitz has anything at all, or is he absolutely in the clear as far as you know, Michael Cardozo?
I got to tell you, I've known Danny for 15 years. He's absolutely in the clear in this one. You know, the police will never come out and say we've cleared him, but he's one of the gentlest souls I know. I would fall down if he had anything to do with this. So everybody in this area, there's no question, he had nothing to do with this crime.
So what about, was there a satanic carving in this woman's back? Today's Halloween, today's the day. Of course, this happened a couple of weeks ago. But is there anything about the occult or cults that you believe is happening there?
That's one of the things, Geraldo, that's sort of sending me sideways. There's what else is going on here? He carved a double T into her back. Certainly that's a Gothic sign. You know, one of the things I'm thinking about is, was he under the influence of some drug at the time? You know, crystal meth just jumps out at me. Was he stoned on crystal meth at the time? Is this why he acted out? Were there other people involved with this? You know, keep in mind, this kid was only, 5'5", about 120 pounds?
I tell you, Michael, the whole story of that tiny suspect getting the larger woman and beating her to death with the molding from the house and then carving the whole business, it seems too pat. Michael Cardozo, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we're obviously going to follow this, obviously going to follow it. If you've got a tip about the Vitale murder, really of any other important case, send us an email right now at tips@geraldoatlarge.com, tips@geraldoatlarge.com. So stand by. We'll be back.